Thanks for joining us for the 2021 Tri-City TechCom Conference and for checking out my video about independent consulting in the digital age. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison Stein, and I am a communication consultant at Allison Stein Consulting, LLC, and a recent alum of the Professional and Technical Writing Program at Saginaw Valley State University. This presentation focuses on my journey with the transition from studying technical writing to running a technical writing service, and some tools and techniques you can apply if you're interested in doing freelance work in some capacity. I discuss strategies for transforming a portfolio from an academic document to a professional document, promoting community in digital spaces, engaging with multiple audiences, and cultivating an authentic voice on social media and web content platforms. I touch on a number of supporting topics, such as how to reframe website building as ecosystem building between and among web pages, and how to establish and communicate categories of professional development within your first few months of earning a bachelor's degree. In addition to exploring the set of strategies that drives my design choices in this website and business ecosystem, I share my 6-month plan to launch an independent consultancy, catalog the practices I implemented and happy accidents I encountered, and provide a listing of key activities that may serve as a roadmap for other technical communication professionals with similar goals. If you're considering pursuing self-employment in the professional and technical writing field as your full-time career path, stay tuned for my last segment, Final Thoughts, which frames strategies for establishing a meaningful web presence based around content creation services, especially as a recent graduate. Let's dive in. To give you some context for this presentation, I want to share a little bit about my academic and professional journey in the technical writing field. I attended Saginaw Valley State University as a professional and technical writing major and general business minor from August 2018 to December 2020, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. During this time, I served as secretary in the Association of Professional and Technical Writers, a member of the usability research team, and a social media and web content strategist for Cardinal Solutions. As I was preparing for my transition from an academic environment to a professional environment, I felt myself becoming very drawn to self-employment, specifically the world of independent consulting. During my last 6 months at SVSU, I was able to jump into 2 really wonderful independent studies with Dr. Bill Williamson, which focused on entrepreneurial tech-com and editing and publishing. Those courses ended up sparking the portfolio and blog posts for AllisonSteinConsulting.com. I have been running a communication consultancy based in the Thumb of Michigan for about 2 months now, and today I want to take some time to retrace my steps in launching the business in case freelance work appeals to you and you're looking for some tools and techniques to get started. In the very beginning, I made a list of my skills, which translate into my services, and considered whether and how they might fit together. This was an important step as it helped me focus the rest of the project and made it easier to communicate with others about the breadth and limit of my skill set. But because I do not have a lengthy proven track record as a recent graduate, I understood that prospective clients would expect me to show, not tell. This meant providing samples of my work through a digital portfolio. In my case, this also meant transforming the classroom portfolio I had on hand from an academic document to a professional document. I didn't have to create sample work and project narratives from scratch, but I did have to reframe them in significant ways to meet the needs and expectations of a new audience. Strategies for doing so included listing my education later in my resume, portraying academic accomplishments as secondary to professional ones, and removing unnecessary references to classroom projects. Because our program emphasizes problem solving and experiential learning, in many instances I could reframe those projects as client work. The next step was getting my portfolio ready for public consumption. I invested in the Squarespace website builder so that I could have more functionality than the free tools I was using for school, and bought a custom URL to make it easier for people to find me. I also increased my standards for professionalism by studying what other online content creators were doing. This actually led me to think beyond the portfolio. As I dug deeper with researching other strategies, I found a vast number of online business owners, including consultants, who maintain blogs in a niche with demographic and psychographic affinities to the target customer base for their freelance services. I made a list of blogs I enjoyed, such as Louise Henry, Morgan Tim, and The Creative Pen, and studied how these entrepreneurs used blogging as a tool to build their platforms and create a community of passionate advocates for their consultancies. The posts did not read like a sales pitch or call to hire the blogger in the way a portfolio entry might, but they did serve to sell intangibles, such as experience and ethos. My goals began to change. I now wanted to design not only an electronic portfolio, but a website of a much different scope that would function as a platform for community building at Allison Stein Consulting. By page, I identified diverse pathways and purposes for this site. The purpose of my homepage was to orient, welcome, and pique the interest of site visitors. The purpose of my blog was to engage visitors in pertinent topics about writing, editing, and design, to establish and maintain professional identity, and to sell myself without selling anything. The purpose of my About page was to present myself as a qualified professional and to contextualize my personas as a writer and writing consultant, or a creative and technical writer. The purpose of my Hire Me page was to provide examples of my services and manage clients' expectations. The purpose of my portfolio was to demonstrate my investment in my work and in work processes. The purpose of my contact page was to give prospective clients an easily understood next step. The purpose of my shop page was to sell books and to support the narrative that I am qualified to consult about publishing. Over time, I compiled the resources I studied in a formal digital archive. I wanted to share the blogs that I found valuable, by category, with others to keep track of the loose ends and overlapping threads in my own professional development, to drive some traffic back to the bloggers who helped me develop a blogging strategy, and last but not least, to earn a reputation for curating quality content with my readers. Let me give you a quick recap of July and August 2020. I engaged in the following key activities: reading about the gig economy, making a list of my skills, defining the breadth and limits of my services, deciding on my web pages, selecting a website building platform, choosing projects to feature in my portfolio and how to present those projects, comparing other blogs and studying up on social media strategy, choosing the design or aesthetic elements of my website, such as font kits and images, brainstorming ideas for content of value that I could provide as a student, such as resource listings, and discussing an umbrella business and the potential sub-businesses for my consultancy. As a prospective blogger, I considered internal and external publishing projects. My blog could serve as a platform for both announcements specific to Allison Stein Consulting and links to articles with wider appeal for which I could seek publication in other venues. I identified topics I might be interested in and qualified to write about, venues that published articles about those topics, and patterns and strategies within and among the articles previously featured in each venue. My greatest challenge was developing an appropriate voice for the articles. Many guest blog posts called for a direct second-person voice that positioned the writer as a credible source on the topic. Thus, I needed to write in a voice that conveyed more authority and confidence than the voice I was accustomed to writing in. By seeking feedback from people I trusted and studying the tone of published articles, I gradually emulated the voice of other platforms. During this time, I was reading Michael Ventura's Applied Empathy, which is a great book about empathetic leadership in the Sub Rosa design consultancy run by Ventura. Ventura talks about strategies for practicing empathy in the context of project narratives about the work Sub Rosa has completed for clients. The chapters read like stories rather than the formal narratives I had constructed for my portfolio. I wondered whether and how I could create an alternative version of my portfolio project narratives to distribute in my blog and on social media. In the project narrative blog entries, I needed to appeal to a broader base of readers than prospective clients, which is the primary audience for my portfolio. That meant adapting my narratives to the blogging platform. For example, I added a final thoughts section with strategies and quick fixes for readers to implement in their own consulting work. I focused less on the results I achieved with client projects than the activities that drove those results, as the main purpose of my blog, unlike, say, my portfolio, is not to sell my freelance design services, but to teach people. Let me give you a quick recap of September and October 2020. I engaged in the following key activities: studying how other consultants present themselves on Fiverr and Upwork, modeling project narratives for the blog after Ventura, identifying potential venues for guest blog posts, identifying patterns and strategies among articles published by target venues, drafting articles for target venues, seeking feedback from others, planning pricing, contracts, and services, and filling the gaps in my professional development. At this point, I had developed some content for both the portfolio and the blog, but the question was, could I do more or better to market myself to prospective clients? I liked the way my portfolio was shaping up, but I saw a need to give people an opportunity to skim the surface of my professional development, instead of, or in addition to, taking a deep dive by reading a portfolio entry. To that end, I worked on crafting a resume. I offered this document as a one-page PDF or as an expanded interactive version with internal and external links to my projects. On the blogging side, I constructed project narratives modeled after Ventura. I also refined my digital resource archive, where I contextualized thoughts from a variety of qualified bloggers. My 3 resource-related entries focused on strategies and best practices for social media managers, editors, and usability researchers. It occurred to me that the way I divided my resource listings among the 3 topics paralleled the 3 categories I had chosen for work experience in my interactive resume: professional promotion experience, editing experience, and usability research experience. Although I had been wrestling for months now about what topics and types of content to publish on my blog, suddenly the content calendar filled itself in. Like much of my best usability or market research for clients, the research for my own consulting website was a very bottom-up process. I figured out what I had to say and then mapped those possibilities and constraints to blog categories, not the other way around. I made a list of areas of professional focus, or topics of content. These included professional promotion, editing and publishing, and usability research. I made another list of areas of the website, or types of content. These included services from the Hire Me page, resource listings from the blog, resume experiences from the About page, project narratives from the portfolio, project narratives from the blog, and articles from external venues. I decided to set up blog categories that allowed readers to search by either topic or type of content. Let me give you a quick recap of November and December 2020. I engaged in the following key activities: dividing my business into 3 professional development categories, strategizing about the different types of blog content, making a content calendar grid, writing my author bio, creating the resources pages, creating an interactive resume, and building more project narratives for the blog and portfolio. I want to wrap my presentation up with a final thoughts segment. This is intended for other beginners on the career ladder who are interested in building a website to support a new business venture. Keep listening for my best strategies and quick fixes for getting your entrepreneurial project on track in the short and long term. First, close the gap between how people perceive you and how you want to be perceived. For me, this meant transforming my portfolio from an academic to a professional document so that I could feel more comfortable showing samples of my work to individuals and businesses outside of Saginaw Valley State University. In the long term, reframe class projects as client projects with a clear audience, purpose, and context. In the short term, limit references to course names and curricula except where and how your audience expects to see these details, such as in the education section of your resume. Second, consider whether you are defining the scope of your project too broadly or narrowly. I changed my goal from designing a portfolio to designing a web-based community, of which my portfolio was one component. In the long term, study model consultancies and draw from published strategies and best practices. In the short term, zoom in and out of your project. If you zoom in, can you more easily define a core purpose for your business without the distraction of peripheral activities? If you zoom out, do you find a core purpose on the periphery? Third, speak to your readers in a direct, confident tone. People will be much more receptive to your message if they see you as competent and trustworthy. It took some practice before I established patterns for writing in this manner. In the long term, read the work your target venues publish. Ask others how your writing comes across to them. In the short term, search your Word document for hedge language, such as I think, you should, and sort of. Edit any sentences that appear in your search. Fourth, write for multiple audiences, or at least with multiple audiences in mind. I developed formal project narratives for my portfolio, which caters to the needs of prospective clients, and for my blog, which serves a more general audience, including other consultants. In the long term, construct personas for members of different audiences. Consider if and where readers' needs, expectations, and values are apt to diverge. Identify areas where you might offer two complementary but alternative reading experiences. In the short term, write an expanded version of a short blog post. Write a summary about a longer post. Fifth, make connections between and among your web pages. I used an expanded interactive resume to link my standard one-page PDF resume and the project narratives from my portfolio. In the long term, draw a map of your website. Evaluate how and to what extent you lead readers from one page to another. Note untapped opportunities to cross-promote your content, weak or arbitrary connections between posts, and blog entries with fewer than 2 internal links. In the short term, add links to posts of the same type or from the same content category at the end of each blog entry. Last but not least, establish categories for your knowledge, skills, and abilities. I focused on marketing myself as a professional promotion expert, editor, and usability researcher. In the long term, commit your ideas to paper via a content calendar. If you are a visual thinker, try making a grid. List areas of professional focus across the x-axis and areas of your website down the y-axis. In the short term, visit job boards for freelancers, such as Fiverr and Upwork, to see how other consultants talk about the work they do and jumpstart your thinking. As I am recording this video, it is mid-March, and I have been working as a full-time communication consultant at Allison Stein Consulting, LLC for about 2 months. I want to thank the faculty and my classmates in the Department of Rhetoric and Professional Writing. I'm so happy with and humbled by the support I've received as a student and graduate in the Professional and Technical Writing program. I am currently tackling 5 client projects, and my job titles range from social media strategist to ghostwriter. 3 of my 5 projects stem directly from connections I made as a PTW student. With that said, I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the Tri-City TechCom conference. I hope that the content of my presentation was helpful to you. If you are interested in learning more about independent consulting opportunities or some suggested strategies for navigating the transition to the job market, I have a variety of resources available at my website, AllisonSteinConsulting.com. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have by email. Thanks again to the Association of Professional and Technical Writers and the Department of Rhetoric and Professional Writing for hosting Tri-City TechCom, and thank you for listening.